welcome to another episode of the Caffeinated Librarian. I'm Simona.
I'm Amy.
And today we'll be discussing the 2014 American fantasy romance film Winter's Tale, which is based on the 1983 novel of the same name by Mark Halperin. And it stars Colin Farrell, Jessica Brown Findlay, Jennifer Connelly, and William Hurt, Eva St. Marie, Russell Crowe, and Will Smith. So this film is available for streaming on Hoopla, and copies of the DVD are also available through the library catalog. So what were your thoughts, Amy, on the film?
I have a lot of thoughts. And gonna warn you, a lot of them are not good thoughts. I loved the acting. Colin Farrell was fantastic. So was I can't remember her name, Beverly, the one who played the
Jessica Brown.
Girl. Yes. I thought the acting was really well done. However, like my first, like on the first blush of it, and that like I will discuss more later, but I think that it was like they picked 5 ideas out of a hat and then wrote the script. Like there was so much to put in, and I don't think they could treat it well because of that. What about you?
That's a fair assessment. When I first watched this film, I really enjoyed it. And then as I was watching it again, this is probably my third time, I think, actually watching this film. And as I was watching and preparing for the podcast, I also decided to read some reviews because I've never read the novel. So I really have no idea how faithful this film is to the novel. I was reading reviews, and a lot of the reviews were negative.
Not just negative.
Yeah.
Super negative.
Yeah. Well, one reviewer in particular took issue with the whole notion of the universe being impartial, and the whole notion that the universe cares for everyone because, poverty exists and hatred and all these other sort of bad things associated with living in a society. I kind of believe that the reviewer may have missed the point of what the film is trying to say, as evidenced by even Colin Farrell's character, Peter Lake. When we first meet him, it's when his parents are on Ellis Island and they're trying to get into New York City. And because his father, I think, has tuberculosis, some sort of illness, he will not be able to sort of go into New York City. And he and his wife, well, the wife probably could have stayed, but he would have to leave. And it's not really explained. I wish they would have explained this, why they're so desperate to have the baby remain. That's not really explained. But showing that the immigrant experience at that time, I think sort of would answer the question of the reviewer that was sort of saying that it's forgetting all the negative things about life, because obviously that's a very negative experience. The family's in danger of being torn apart, and the parents ultimately make the decision to put him in a tiny boat and send him off, and sort of like, they're hoping for the best.
Not just a tiny boat.
It's a
model
boat.
Tiny boat.
Yeah. So, and then you even see Peter Lake, his experiences with the gang that he was formerly associated with. So I don't think the movie ignores the harder or harsher aspects of life. And I think the whole notion of the universe, it sort of goes with this ideology, which I'm sort of learning about, is that the universe is impartial. The universe is neither good nor bad. People are good or bad. So I don't know. I kind of feel that the reviewer may have missed the point of what the film was trying to say, but I don't know. I mean, I still enjoyed the film. I still think that it's beautifully acted. Now, whether it was overreaching itself in terms of what it was trying to communicate, that is a possibility. Maybe this would have been better as a mini series and not necessarily a film.
Yes, I agree with that. I didn't feel like it. I mean, it's really easy for anyone in any like lucky capacity to say like everybody's equal and all that stuff. Like, I didn't actually hear that so much as everybody has something to offer. You know, like Peter wouldn't think that he had a miracle in him, you know, like on the face of it. But and there was very little face of it. You know, it just it killed me, you know, that they got great actors and like did not delve like um and you know and I understand that they were having content problems, but it was the movie equivalent of hoarding, because you know like they had all this great stuff and they couldn't lose any of it. So now we have baby getting dropped into the harbor on a fake boat you never see. You just find out briefly that that he was kind of taken into the care of Russell Crowe, who you find out is like a demon, question mark, and then oh, and a magic horse. Like, it just got weirder and weirder, and like it didn't tie together, and the whole miracle thing was like out of left field. I just didn't feel like there was any, you know, they had to give their overarching theme more time because there was so little understanding for me. I mean, I definitely feel that they needed they needed to like get one of these themes out because they couldn't do it well, you know, and I actually wrote down all the movies that it should have been. um
That's
I
interesting. I bet
decided
you did it.
I decided this was three different movies because it was so confused and silly because of like all of this random seeming stuff thrown together. So, movie 1, Jake's childhood. He's put in the ship, gets raised by Pearlie, the random gentleman that talks about the magic horse for like 30 seconds that you never know who he is. We meet him. And movie 2, Jake falling out with Pearlie, meeting Beverly. Um, Beverly dies. Pearlie thinks he's killed Jake. You see Jake crawling out, standing in the graveyard, not knowing who he's trying to visit. Movie 3, final showdown, meeting Jennifer, the the weird coincidence of meeting Willa Penn, um, and then the culmination. And maybe no magic horse.
No, I can definitely see how yeah, the film was definitely trying to handle too much. And unfortunately, I've never read the book.
Mm-hmm.
I really
Yeah,
I
me too.
really I really wonder if we would probably enjoy the book more so than the film. And often enough, with a few exceptions, the books are always better than the films.
Yeah, true.
And like I
I
said,
Oh,
I'm
go ahead.
no, just I was gonna say, I think this is definitely an example, as you and Lou were mentioning, poor editing, and also I really think this was a good example of it should have just been maybe a mini series,
Mm-hmm.
made for TV mini series kind of deal, where you could have had more time to flesh out the character, flesh out certain backstories, even the whole thing about Pearlie Soames, where like one thing that was interesting is that when you first see his like his business, because there's no, I really have no idea of how Pearlie makes his money.
Oh, and oh yes, and Jake. Like
Yeah.
I especially after he loses his identity. He looks pretty well kept for someone who's been hanging around in New York City for 100 years. But go on.
I guess that's the part where you have to sort of suspend your disbelief. And I don't know, maybe in the book, he probably has like found employment of some kind, you know,
Mm-hmm.
hopefully the author would have explained that.
Right.
Um, I don't know, but I was kind of curious to figure out how Pearlie gets his income. I mean, yes,
Mm-hmm.
he's a gangster, so maybe part of it is that he probably exploits people for money. But I kind of also got the notion, because Pearlie mentions how he needs to stop this miracle from occurring because any win for the other side is a lose for, you know, their side.
Mm-hmm.
And at one point when you see his business, I don't know if this is in the past or in the future, it almost looks like they're like tallying up like acts of evil. I don't know, maybe if I misread it, but almost like what are they measuring, or what are they doing to sort of counterbalance and make their side win? If it makes any sense what I'm trying to say. Like I'm trying to
Mm-hmm.
figure out what exactly he does.
Yeah, I did I did feel that that was missing. Like any explanation of what they do in their off hours from being like bad guys or, you know, moping gentlemen. And can we just mention for a minute Colin Farrell's haircut? Were they mad at him?
I kind of got that that was I think that haircut was sort of what they would have worn at the time, because I'm kind of thinking of the show Peaky Blinders, which I don't
Mm-hmm.
Peaky Blinders around the same time, and that particular kind of haircut would have been worn. That's what I'm
Mm-hmm.
thinking. I'm thinking the haircut is trying to be historically accurate, but don't quote
Maybe.
me on that. I don't know. I mean, I kind of like it, but
I went back and forth on it. I liked it when he slicked it back.
okay.
It worked when it was slicked back, but it looked too much like my 90 like 90 94 to 98 or something college experience of frat boys.
Oh,
And it was kind of not the look I would have associated with him. Um so you know, I have to say I really liked a lot of things about this movie. And I have to say, I did not cry, and you guys know that I cry at like anything. So for a movie about death and love and miracles, for me not to cry has to be really, really affecting in a bad way. But I loved the portrayals of most of the characters. I liked the work they did. Um, I just wish that we had more time with any of them. You know, like they needed to just have a different ending. If they'd ended it, and I seriously looked at the timestamp when he's crying over Beverly's body, and I'm like, we have another hour, cause like you know, it just didn't make sense. And I did like the tie-in with the little girl and how it all came together as fate had intended or something. But I loved the chemistry between Beverly and Jake was really good. Even so good that I could ignore that she like just invites him for tea when he's standing there behind her holding a gun.
yeah, yeah. Like re-watching that scene, I remember thinking, you know, you're awfully calm. And maybe it could be an aspect of the fact that she is dying, or
Right.
she, you know, she could die at any moment. So perhaps she's not as fearful. I don't know.
Right.
Maybe because it's a very good-looking man who's
With a
broken into
gun.
home, you know, holding a gun. I mean, who knows?
Yeah,
Um,
I mean, I do agree with your take that And it's because she's got nothing to lose. Like, what are you gonna do? Kill me? I don't have that much time. However, I got a lot of issues with her illness because she looks remarkably unsick until she's dead. So, she's saying, like, one doctor said I have a year, another doctor said I had 6 months. And it's like, other than not getting cold, like she doesn't seem to need to like rest or anything. It's that frustrates me. And not that you can't have invisible diseases that can kill you, but you don't generally look so happy and spry while you're dying.
Yeah, and I was even wondering, to be perfectly honest, about the whole thing about not feeling the cold. Like, I understand she has to keep her body temperature down,
Mm-hmm.
but realistically, though, would she like? And I probably didn't pay attention to this when I first watched it, but I was thinking, would she be able to be barefoot in the snow, like just
Right.
walking around? Like frostbite wouldn't be an issue, or like I was really thinking, and I don't know if that's an aspect of the magic quality to the novel. I mean,
I
you know,
don't think so. I mean, I think it was just, like, hey guys, we need a pretty disease. And like, consumption is a super pretty disease, apparently. Um, I don't know if you guys are podcast people, but I have to say I love Sawbones, which is a doctor and her husband discussing like medical issues and medical history. And it was like really looked at as the preferred way to die. Like you might be coughing up blood and such, but you leave a pretty corpse behind you. Um, so, but still, she would get winded. She would cough. Like she wouldn't just have high fevers that melt snow.
yeah, yeah. I guess we could spend quite a good deal of time on whether or not, because honestly, this is something I didn't pay attention to when I first watched it. I just sort of thought, oh, magical love story,
Right.
and it's really pretty. Like I love the cinematography and the music, but
Hmm.
then watching it for the podcast, I was like, but would it make sense that if she, like even sleeping on the roof, like I can understand to be cool, but you would still need to have something on. I mean, especially in the dead of winter, would wearing a sweater necessarily prevent you from being able to, I don't know. Anyway.
Right. Well, you'd still lose like fingers and toes to
Yeah.
frostbite, even if it was keeping your fever down. But
Yeah.
we can keep going. But I have no issue with the love story. I liked the love story. And if they could have focused, if Pearlie was not in the picture, if the magic horse wasn't in the picture, and like if they cut out like everything but the love story, I would have been bawling like a toddler at the end of that. Even if they kept him having a vision of this girl he needs to save, and even if we kept that he lived for 100 years without aging, not mentioning the miracles, like he doesn't know why. Maybe we'll learn, we learn that he's stayed alive to save another redheaded girl at the end. But the sheer amount of stuff they tried to cover, and like the depth of character that they tried to put in for Pearlie. Like he's a bad guy. He doesn't need dimension. I know it's Russell Crowe, but you have to sacrifice some stuff.
I don't really feel like he had any dimension to him to begin with. I mean, I kind of liked his relationship with Lucifer. And
Mhm.
it's interesting because the first time I saw Will Smith, I didn't realize how he's dressed very modern.
Yes.
And the first time I think I did not pay attention to it. And then I was watching this podcast. I was like, why is he wearing a graphic t-shirt? Like, honestly, it took me so out of the scene. Like, I was so distracted by his t-shirt. I'm like, why does he look like that?
Yeah, I didn't mind that because he's out of time and space.
Yeah, but you can be out of time and space, still wear like historically accurate. Like, I can understand if you wanted to play around with like, okay, what colors would have been worn at that time, but I don't know. Anyway, that just bothered me. It really, like, I had no clue why he was dressed that way, but I
Mhm.
liked their interactions together. You know,
Yeah.
especially when Pearlie calls him Lou,
Hmm.
which indicates a degree of familiarity between the two
Yeah.
of them, which I thought was kind of cute and endearing. Like, oh, he calls Lucifer Lou.
Yeah,
I
and
did feel
that
bad for
he didn't
Lucifer.
want him to do it. I'm sorry, I interrupted you.
No, no, I just like I felt really bad for Lucifer because I was just thinking how long, and what I would have liked to have known too was why Lucifer was down there. I mean, I understand with the whole biblical story, Lucifer was cast out.
Hmm.
Maybe that's what they're going with, the fact that he was cast out. But I was just thinking it's really depressing because he's in that tunnel. And then when the future time, like he's still in that tunnel,
Right, right.
it's like, is he like bound to the tunnel? Can he not leave the tunnel? Does he just prefer staying in the tunnel? Like I kind of would have, I don't know. These were questions I
Today
would have
we're
liked to have had some
discussing Will
answers.
Smith and the tunnel.
Yes.
Um, and that's, well, no, and you're right. We didn't know Pearlie at all. So
Mhm.
they spent this time, like, this time that really could have been used developing other characters, like say the magic horse, which we need to talk about. We need to talk about the magic horse. Um, but that was kind of wasted on this character that, if they really needed Russell Crowe to play a villain, could they have not yet, like, I understand they wanted the magic of a fairy tale, but then you have to spend less time on other things. It's sacrifice. You have to sacrifice some things to do something else well.
Mhm.
And it was such a problem. And would you like to talk about the magic horse now, or do you want to talk about something else?
No, I mean I had no issue with the magic horse. Because I think it's also because I do love the idea that every person has a
A
spirit,
magic horse?
well,
Sorry.
a spirit guide of some sort or some kind of guardian angel.
Hmm.
Uh, I was just looking up because the gentleman that Peter Lake talks to, the gentleman who provides the exposition on the magic horse,
Hmm.
basically says, you know, that in his culture, we believe in spirit guides, and he calls the spirit guide, I don't know, the dog star.
Right. Was he
So
a
I would,
Native American?
yes, he is, and that actor recently won some awards for his contribution in cinema. Yeah, he is a well-known Native American actor. Yeah, and one would assume that the character he's also portraying is Native American because he
Right.
talks about in his culture. So I call him, he's the exposition gentleman who explains the dog star. And I was trying to figure out why they made it into a horse.
Well,
Because
because you
the
can ride
dog,
a horse. You can't ride a dog that well.
well, the dog could have been true, I guess. But then I don't know, because I was trying to look at the constellation and it's known as the dog star or Sirius.
Hmm.
And it doesn't mention that any other culture really looks at it as a horse. So, okay, so I
Yeah.
guess other than
Yeah.
the fact that the horse could actually be ridden, that's probably why they did it. But what issues did you have with the horse?
Oh, wow. Let me count the ways. Okay. Okay. Um, First of all, I mean, I am a sucker for a magic horse. Like, please don't let me make you believe that if that magic horses are not something that I would love. It just frustrated me that they're going to have this majestic horse that flies and everybody's going to take it for granted. Like, like it's not even like, like I liked when Jake saw the horse again and he said something like hello friend or hello old friend. But again, we never really got a chance to focus on relationships. And obviously he loves the horse that he names Horse, even though the horse that is named Horse has some pretty rainbow iridescent invisible wings. And nobody mentions that the horse can fly. Like nobody's like, you fly? Which I feel like, like I understand the embracing of magic, but in an urban fantasy, there has to be a moment where you stop and appreciate the magic. Like and that the wonder that the audience is supposed to feel, I didn't see anywhere. They're just like, wow, okay, or not even wow, like just like, I'm gonna scream and then I'm gonna live through it. And now we're done. And I mean, and I'm just frustrated. I that I did like that Jake sent the horse away. I had to fast forward through that whole scene and then go back after I found out that the horse was okay. Because you can kill a human, but not a horse. Um, but they really, especially since they were doing something on, the magic, there was so little time to like appreciate the magic.
But it kind of makes me want to read the book,
Oh yeah, I totally want to read the book.
to be perfectly honest.
I've
Because
already checked it out.
oh,
It's
great.
on it's on Libby. It's the ebook. I sent it to my Kindle Paperwhite already. It's all ready for me. Because there was depth. There was depth that you could feel, but you couldn't see.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think there were opportunities that were sort of missed or wasted. I agree with what you said about the moments of magic happening. And it's almost treated as if, well, it's a natural occurrence for a magical horse to fly. Like, I mean, God knows if that happened to me, my reaction would be completely different. I mean, even
Right,
if you
right.
argue that the characters are jaded, or like Peter's character, he's been there and seen it all. I don't know.
But even a good boy, what a good boy you are. Like when my dog poops outside, I say he's a good boy.
Yeah.
Like, how about good job not making us dead? Okay, sorry. Just a little rage.
No, and I guess, I mean, I don't know, because in addition to the horse that's a magical helper, there is the angel character, whom we first meet when Peter goes to stable the horse. And the angel gives him his look and he says, I was wondering when you were going to show up. And then, of course, there's the other angel that chose to become a human. He's the one that Hurley recruits to sort of kill Beverly. So we're supposed to assume that angels are among us to
Right.
one extent or another, just as demons are among us. Although it was interesting because I assumed in Pearlie's gang there were demons as well, but they don't appear to be demons. Pearlie seems to be the only one that's demonic. The rest of them are just people. And then another moment, which is so interesting, when you go to the future timeline and Pearlie shows this wanted picture of Peter to one of his minions, and the minion goes, "Boss, this photo's over 100 years old." And Pearlie says, "You think I don't know that?" And he says, "I'm sorry." I mean, that man is aware that Pearlie knew his great grandfather.
Right.
The man not stop to think, how could this man who hasn't aged have known my, I don't know whether it was a matter of the writing being poor, or it's supposed to be that the character maybe is just simply thick.
Super dumb.
It's like you're basically saying to your boss, "Well, boss, this is 100 years old. Like, how do you find him? But I know that you were walking around
Right.
with great grandfather. In fact, you even killed my great grandfather." Like, really rewatching them, I was like, this is so dumb. So I don't know, and I don't know whether it's, just a matter of the character is really supposed to be dense or whatever, or that's just poor writing.
Or it was exposition done badly.
Probably, yeah.
Okay. And I have an important thing to talk about.
Sure.
It's nobody says microfiche correctly. Everybody says microfiche, as in it's a tiny fish. And so first the librarian, I think they're at the New York Public Library, right? Or I think he was at the library at first.
Yeah, and at the library, it's named after
right, the Beverly's father.
Yeah.
Beverly's father.
Yeah.
Okay, so first that guy says it wrong. Then Jennifer Connelly says it wrong. And then somebody else says it wrong. So apparently somebody was like, no, it's a fish. And it was a microfilm. So they didn't even need to say microfiche at all. And as a librarian married to a librarian, that I actually had to pause the movie and have a hissy fit.
See, I did not even notice that. I don't know. I think, I don't know. Sometimes, like I said, I watch things and things completely elude me. So it's possible that my brain subconsciously picked up the error, but I have no idea. But yeah, it's interesting because I love that scene when Peter first walks in. He goes, I'd like to see
right.
What is Beverly's father's name? Is it
Nathaniel?
Yeah, Isaac Penn. I'd like to see Isaac Penn. And the librarian goes, this is the Isaac Penn reading room. He goes, yes. And which is so interesting is because at that point, Peter has been around for a while now. Is he not aware of the shifting of time?
Right.
I mean, I can understand when he first gets out of the water because, okay, sorry, I need to gather my thoughts. I apologize. Is he not aware that time has passed, that he's no longer in the 19th century?
Right.
That's the part that kind of confused me. Is he not aware of this?
That didn't bother me. I kind of felt like, having, you can see that all of a sudden things are starting to come back to him. And that's because he meets Abby. Is it Abby, the little girl with cancer?
Yes.
And he he's coming back to himself after he sees her. And he doesn't know why, but he's starting to kind of have curiosity again. All he could do was draw this picture of this girl, of a person with red hair looking at the moon. And it seems like that's all he does, which, again, I'd love to know where he lives and what he eats, but that didn't bother me. And that actually, the most affecting scene, one of the two, when Beverly dies and he's just trying to bring her back to life. And when he sees her picture, and you know, and as painful as some of these parts were, you know, you really do see the amount that they want to talk about how loss is so permanent and it's so painful. Like, you know, the Beverly's father talks about how his wife has been gone for years, but it never gets easier in some ways, and how his wife chose everything in that house, and he would rather die. He would rather explode with the house than have it be gone and him be alive with that knowledge. Um, which makes it sad at the end when it's abandoned, but you know, I don't know. Um, but you know, when he's looking at that picture of her and the tears are just coming down his face, you know, the thought of losing someone that you're so in love with is it's a terror that everyone has to feel and know. And like, you know, and you just never let yourself think about it, because if you do, you're just gonna like lie in bed forever and try not to talk to anyone. So, but I did notice that theme.
Yeah, yeah, like the theme of loss, of coping with it,
Mhm.
of, you know, coming.
And the knowledge of the loss, you know, that Beverly knows she's dying and her family knows she's dying, and it doesn't make her death any easier to accept. And you know, and that Abby is dying, and she knows, the mom knows that she's dying, and you know, there's nothing she can do, and the helplessness that a parent feels in the face of something like that, and you know, that it's the worst nightmare, and you hear that over and over again, that you know, like, losing a child, that's my worst nightmare, you know. And it does try to discuss that, and it doesn't, with every other theme that it's trying to get to, unfortunately, that kind of falls a little flat.
Yeah, and I think it's also partially the reactions that everyone has to certain things. Even Jennifer Connelly's character, her reaction to, you know, seeing this guy who's, you know, drawing in Central Park, and,
Right.
you know, and then eventually she sees him at her workplace, and then she invites him over for chicken, and then then he tells her, you know, she's my miracle.
Right,
And
get on my
it's all,
flying horse.
yeah, and it's like it all happens so quickly
Right.
that no one has the time to process anything.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. And then again, I guess it's supposed to be probably just the element of faith and magic. Yeah, I really don't.
And right, but that everybody has the capacity to change somebody else's life for the better is definitely, you know, like, it knocks you a bit over the head with like the fairy tale kiss in in the greenhouse. um but you know, that's, and wishing for a miracle, which I think everybody with somebody who's sick does all the time. You pray for a miracle, you hope for a miracle. um and I'm just looking at my notes, but I think I might be done.
Yeah, I'm pretty much. I don't think I have much more to say except for the gentleman who plays Beverly's father, William Hurt.
Hmm.
Uh, and I might be offending a lot of people by saying this, but I've never really been impressed by him as an actor.
Mm.
His line delivery is so flat. And I've seen this gentleman in other things, and he hasn't really impressed me. It's a very like monotone delivery.
Hmm.
And then I was looking at the whole scene when he's interrogating Peter and the whole fillet and 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 I was trying to figure out, okay, so is he trying to test to see how educated he is?
I think
Because,
so.
because then the whole fillet and then claret, and then whether it's
Right, right.
claret, and then like the whole I don't know, like the whole scene just seemed bizarre to me too.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's trying to get a an understanding about this like random dude that shows up with his dying daughter.
Hmm.
I have to say, like, of the unbelievable parts, um some dude showing up with my very sick daughter um to my country house and just being like, all right, cool. You know, like, just don't sleep with her and we're good. Like, I mean, that's the only part that I would be like, like, date her, go crazy. She's dying. Let her have some good times. But, and then he's kind of like excommunicated for her funeral. Whereas I would be like, don't stay in my house because I imagine you might rob me blind. But if you treat my daughter with respect and love her and give her some experiences that she'll never have otherwise, why is that a bad thing?
Yeah, I guess probably that's the part where what would be nice sort of rubs against the conventions of the time, I guess,
Yeah.
because I don't want my daughter ruined by some scoundrel, and I don't really know who you are. But then again, like I am okay with you staying in the house.
Right, go for it.
She sleeps on the roof, you do not. I mean, that's putting a
Yeah.
lot of trust in the fact that Peter would honor that request.
Right.
You
Right.
know,
And why, like, and what parent is like, what parent would be naive enough to be like, yeah, that's gonna work.
well, I have a story for probably when we finish recording, but
But actually,
about
like,
that.
I do need to stop. But I thought this review was the funniest thing I'd read in a while. And it's not complimentary, but it was really funny. Uh, so this is from Wikipedia's discussion of the book, of the movie. In his one-star review for the Guardian, Peter Bradshaw was more critical of Farrell, questioning why he gives Peter an Irish accent when his character has never been to Ireland, which is a valid point. Bradshaw concluded his review by suggesting that the film could be made worse only by releasing a giant, vicious, genetically engineered man-eating badger into the cinema while it's playing.
The whole thing with the accent, I thought the same thing because um and like I said, I've watched this film 3 times, and I never paid attention to the accents of his parents. But this time I was obviously paying attention, and I was like, oh, okay, so they're from Europe, they're not Irish. And then when Peter starts talking, I was like, why would he have such a thick, heavy Irish accent? I mean, okay, has he been hanging around Irish people? Was he raised by someone Irish? Well, Pearly Soames, but like even I was thinking, it doesn't make any sense that he has an Irish accent. Like, why would he have an Irish accent? Other than the fact that maybe Colin Farrell didn't want to try to do an American accent, maybe he couldn't do
Yeah,
very well. Um, that's probably why. But the what did he call the badger, the reviewer again?
a genetically engineered um, man-eating badger. I think
Yeah.
it's excessive, but I thought it was hilarious. So
No, it is, and the fact that he mentions the accent, I thought the same thing when I was watching.
me too.
Why does he have this Irish accent? Well, okay, so thank you everyone for tuning in and listening to us. We hope you enjoyed this podcast. Thank you.
Bye. Thanks.
Bye, everyone.